The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Alan Blumkin. I'm here on the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network, and this is going to be another edition of Pittsburgh Sports. I'm here with my co-host, David Finoli. Hi, David.
Hey, Al. How things going?
Okay. Where do you want to start? We got the Pirate trades, the Steelers, and the basketball teams who, Pitt pulled another one out yesterday.
Yeah, I was going to say, why don't we start there? I mean, I was at the Duquesne game, so I didn't get a chance to see the Pitt game last night, but it sounded like they blew quite a lead.
Well, I didn't watch it. I was following it on the iPad because I can't watch them. Very, very tough. And they got off, believe it or not, to a 10-point lead at the half.
Wow.
And with 5.5 minutes to go, they were up by 8. They wound up losing by 4. In the last 5.5 minutes of that game, they scored 2 points.
Well, what is your opinion of what happened? From as a former Pitt alum.
Yeah, basically, I thought that Jamie Dixon was the best coach of any either football or basketball that I've seen since I went to school back then in the early '60s, and because football coaches like Majors and Sherrill, they left for what they considered greener pastures, and Jamie had been around for years. And they brought in this athletic director. He stayed for 1 year. And before moving on to Oregon State, and in that period they lost Jamie Dixon, who now is having a very, very successful season at TCU.
Right.
And they play with the same principles that he used when he was at Pitt. None of these guys are going to be great NBA players, but they know how to play. And Stallings, from what I understand, I didn't watch it, but a couple of guys posted in the Pitt basketball group I'm in that there was one player who was doing very well, and he sat him for the last part of the game. And I predicted when the ACC season started that they would not win a conference game.
You are correct so far.
Yeah, I mean, I would have had to crow after last night, but they found a way.
Well, I mean, one thing I thought, and I mean, you give me your thought. I thought once Jamie lost his pipeline to New York, from what I hear, he's not a real comfortable guy in a recruiting situation, and basically leans on his assistants to make the contacts until Jamie gets called in at the end. And I never thought he was pulling the same kind of players once he lost Barry Rorson into Pitt. And quite frankly, the guys he had there the last year, I'm not so sure where Jamie was going to finish any better last year than Stallings did. I thought he kind of left it in not the best situation when he left. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, maybe you're right. I do know. Yeah, I think the last year of his, tenure, they were still in they went from the Big East to the ACC, and that to me is a whole different story in recruiting. You're not competing against, you're in the ACC, you've got to compete against Duke and North Carolina, Virginia, all these teams that are much better equipped to build basketball programs than Pitt is. Yeah.
Now, I'd like to see this guy maybe get a couple years to see what he can do with these people, but I kind of get the impression from the pressure that's being put there, I don't really see him lasting past this year. What do you think?
Yeah, a lot of people want him out now after the season because, I mean, last night was one indication. There was an indication against Syracuse last week where they actually were ahead until the 16th minute of the first half. But there's too many games that start off, when the other team gets 10 points or more to open the game up.
Right.
And then after that, it's all garbage time.
Yeah. I mean, it does seem pretty ugly. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts, and quite frankly, when you get to this point, I'm not sure how else you can resurrect the program other than getting fresh blood in there.
Yeah, there's a website called www.kenpom.com that ranks all 351 Division I teams. And I looked at it yesterday. I haven't looked at it today. Pitt was 214th. And the only power conference team that was below them was California.
Okay.
They were at 222. So it's very hard. People ask me why I'm so concerned about this, because I said under Dixon, they were respectable and they made the NCAA, and it was exciting. Now I think that as the season goes on, the peak where they play is going to be emptier and emptier and emptier.
It was pretty bad last night from the pictures I saw. There's a guy here. He's a radio legend called Joe the Title Man Huber, and he posted from there last night, and it was empty. I mean, I think that's going to be the deciding factor in what they're going to do with this guy, because you spent a lot of money on one of the great facilities in the country, and you didn't spend it to make sure it was empty.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of years ago it was a full house every time, and now forget it.
Yeah, no, it was.
And from what I understand, Dick Rose is still doing the games on radio, even though he's 87.
He is.
Dick Rose.
Every bit he was 30 years ago.
Yeah. He's 87 now.
Oh yeah, no, he's amazing. He's still in there, but it's a mess. There's no ifs, ands, or buts now.
I know, yeah.
On the other side of Forbes Avenue, the team that's been a mess for 4 decades shows you the difference that a great coach can make in a program. Duquesne has a similar situation to Pitt, that they lost a lot of kids due to transfers. They have 8 scholarship players, of which 2 have been injured. And the talent level, I will claim Pitt still has the better talent. But this guy, I was there last night, and let me tell you, there is an intensity, there is a fight, there is a commitment to defense that has just drastically turned this program around a lot quicker than anybody thought in Duquesne.
I watched the game on TV, the one that they had with LaSalle won triple overtime.
Oh, my God. I mean, in the third overtime, the guys who had fouled out were pretty much their offense except for Mike Lewis. And I looked to my buddy who I was watching with and said, there's no way that Duquesne can score enough points to win this game. And Lewis, who's having a horrid game at that point, he's the only really solid potential great player that stayed on the team last year. And all of a sudden goes nuts in overtime to win the game. And even last night, under 10 minutes left, they're losing by 16. Richmond has a big guy, last name Golden. He dunks the ball to make it 16, pushes the Duquesne center, which last year would have sent them into a funk that would have made the game a 30-point game quickly. Duquesne came out fighting, got it to overtime. Hate to sound like Dick Grope, but there were a couple bad calls that went against them that cost them the game. But just the fact that they had enough gumption to fight back again really shows you the difference in coaching between the two programs.
No, yeah, I know. Pitt last night, to use an old phrase, snatched defeat out of the jaws of victory.
Exactly, and that's how my son described it to me.
And it's just really, really, to go from what you thought was a competitive situation to a situation that's, awful is a compliment.
Yeah. I mean, it's certainly remarkably different in the basketball world here than it was just 2 years ago. But you look for the day. I mean, while I love my alma mater, finally looking ahead, next year they have the best recruiting class they have in 30 years, and they have 4 solid transfers coming in. So the future's bright there, but the future needs to be bright on both campuses to put Pittsburgh back on the college basketball map as a city. So hopefully, I like Stallings. I liked him at Vanderbilt. I thought he did well there, considering the circumstance Vanderbilt puts their coaches in, not taking shortcuts academically as some schools do. And I thought he did well there, but I don't see him getting a shot to finish out this year. I really don't. And quite frankly, I don't see what else the AD can do at this point.
Yeah, also, they're having this weekend, they're having a Big 12 Southeast Conference Challenge. And the feature game tomorrow night is between 2 beloved coaches, West Virginia and Kentucky.
Yeah.
So you got Calipari, you have Calipari, and you have Huggins.
Yeah. Well, beloved is exactly the proper. They're beloved in two cities. Other than that,
TCU played West Virginia the other night, and beat them handily. And everybody I know who went to Pitt was rooting for Jamie Dixon against Huggins.
Oh yeah. I mean, Dixon is a quality guy. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. He's a quality guy. I tend to think it was probably the time for him to do what he did. It was probably he was getting a little stale here, and sometimes you just need a change of scenery.
And maybe you're right, but I don't see Stallings as an answer.
No, that was a very haphazard coaching search. I really genuinely think Barnes thought he had Sean Miller in his back pocket, but I mean he irritated Miller's father, and I get the feeling that Pitt is basically dead to that family. So that was a very bad miscalculation if that's what he truly thought.
Well, Sean Miller probably can stay in Arizona as long as he wants.
With everything that came out with what's going on at Arizona and the fact Sean Miller kept his job, I tend to think you're right. I didn't think he would last long after the allegations came out, but hey, winning solves all.
Oh yeah, and you want to go on to the Steelers?
Absolutely. I tell you what, I was freezing at that game. Certainly went out there and, like the Steelers, thought this was going to be a fairly routine exercise, and they'd get to New England, where I genuinely thought they would win. And boy, I'll tell you what, it showed you just how bad that defense is. And to me, the fact that they made no changes, because you've spent all this money, all these draft picks the last few years to build that defense up. So it's either Colbert is poor at drafting defensive help, or it's the coaching. And I tend to think the defensive coaches are culpable in this, because this is 3 years worth of this now. This isn't just something that happened the last few weeks of the year. Ever since Butler's took over, he hasn't had any success here of note. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, basically, I accepted the loss because, what can you do there? I had that last touchdown at the end of the the end of the game was, just handed to them. And what I did put up on the neighborhood sports bar site, I put down as to paraphrase my favorite philosopher, Yogi Berra, we made too many wrong mistakes.
Yeah.
He said that after the 1960 series.
Yeah, that is a good one.
Yeah, I got a few likes on that. But basically, I thought those two, obviously I couldn't stop them. They put themselves in a hole with those turnovers. But there were 2 bad fourth down calls, and the onside kick, with 2 minutes and change left in the game, was an indication that they didn't trust the defense at all.
They did not.
And I don't know why. Do you think Tomlin is Teflon? That nothing will stick to him?
Well, I mean, I certainly think he needs to answer these challenges. I'm disappointed he hasn't done anything with his defensive core. I do think he's Teflon. I don't think he's going to go anywhere in the near future. And nor, when you win 67% of your games, I know people say he hasn't been to a Super Bowl in 10 years, but he's been a good coach and has led this team very successfully over the last decade through some very difficult time. And when they say that he has the best talent in the league, he has the best talent in the league offensively. I don't look at other than Cam Hayward, he has some good talent on defense, but I mean it's a fifth, and it's going to be tough to get to a Super Bowl unless you either get better coaches or better players. I think you need to get better coaches. I think the other part of it is they don't have good depth on defense. So when you lose a Shazier, there's nothing back there. I mean, that's a problem too. But that being said, I think Tomlin deserves criticized very much for what he's allowed this defense to become and some of the disciplinary issues that have cropped up. But that being said, he's one of the top 2-3 coaches in football, and to get rid of him.
Anybody that says get rid of him, I mean, if you want chaos, all you have to do is come to this area, and you have the Jets and the Giants who provide a lot of that.
Yeah, in today's athlete, I mean,
yeah,
in the day, the coach basically had their lives in their hands. I mean, you didn't make a ton of money, and you get cut on a whim, and all of a sudden you're making no money. These guys are set for life if they choose coming out of college. So, I mean, if you hand a guy $12 million to play football over the course of a year, what's the thing that's going to you be able to discipline him on? I mean, you cut him, he still gets his money, he still can live a nice life. It's a different atmosphere that these coaches are living in. And quite frankly, I asked the question out there and nobody would answer it. If you're Coach Tomlin and you have a running back like Le'Veon Bell and nothing behind him because Connor's hurt and Toussaint was hurt, what are you going to suspend him for the game? And at that point in time, you've basically blown the offense and you certainly would lose. Or are you going to do what he did and kind of ignore it? It's not an easy question to answer. I mean, what would you have done now?
Obviously, you have to play him.
Yeah.
And from what I've been hearing, reading, seeing on the ESPN website, is that the Steelers are negotiating with him, and supposedly it's going very well.
Yeah.
So they'll sign him before. They'll sign him long time before he can get to free agency like last year.
Exactly, and that's probably what they should do. And they've obviously made the decision that they're going to try to outscore teams next year. But
well, the kicker is very good. As a field goal kicker and an extra point kicker, he's not so good on the onside kicks.
No, that was a travesty.
Bad decision. That was a very bad decision. Very bad.
I was talking with my wife about that. I probably would have kicked off with the 2 timeouts, but I don't criticize him for what he did, making the decision. I mean, the kick was poor.
Yeah, it was a very poor execution. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know why Tomlin would have any confidence that all of a sudden they could stop this team. It's a bad offense. It is not an effective offense in any way, shape, or form. And to allow what they did was, to me, one of the low points in Steeler playoff history.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they were looking ahead. Who knows? But they Roethlisberger early in the game turned the ball over twice, which led to points. They put themselves 21-0 hole, and it was very, very hard to climb out of.
Right, and you're correct in that thought, as you said earlier. Those fourth down calls were just embarrassing. And the thing was, just looking at the way he was at the line, in my eyes, those were both audibles. So,
Well, Todd Haley now is going to be showing his wares out in Cleveland, which of course is coming off a 0-16 record, so he'll have plenty of.
You can't do it worse.
No. You know they had a parade there.
Oh yeah.
In Cleveland, the Saturday where it was so cold, I think it was the day before the day before the Saturday of the wild card. A small parade in Cleveland to celebrate the 0-16.
Oh, that was an absolute joke. That was absolutely a joke. But it's got to be frustrating out there. I mean, it's you love this team. You sit and you watch the Ravens win a couple Super Bowls. That should have been them. I mean, that should have been them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They said that the four teams that have never even been to a Super Bowl are Jacksonville, the expansion Browns, Houston Texans, which have only been around for since 2002. The fourth one is the Lions. Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions haven't won anything since 1957. And since that, the 60 years, they've been to one NFC championship game where they were blown in Washington.
Right. And I don't know what's just to absolutely stink or to tantalize your fans every so often with decent play, only to let them down. I mean, they both just, those are both suffering fans for any way, shape, or form. Suffering a lot like our Buccos make us suffer.
Oh God, I mean, the McCutcheon thing to me was, I knew when they were getting rid of all those guys in the early 2000s, they got rid of Sanchez and Giles and whoever else was playing well there. But this was to me the worst one since the Grow trade.
Well, I mean,
they basically gave him away.
Yeah, it's going to be tough to tell. I mean, maybe the outfielder will work out. You got a guy from San Francisco, and actually Feliz with the Astros. I mean, they're the same pitcher. They have just a live arm and no control. They got lucky with Rivero, who came with those similar attributes. But I mean, what are the odds you're going to be able to fix three pitchers like that?
Not very high. When they traded Melanson, I was very, very upset by that. But they signed this fat contract with the Giants last year, and he missed most of the season.
Now Garrett Cole, I'm not as upset about. This kid has been a disappointment the last couple of years. I know there have been some injuries, but I mean, I don't think he is stable at times on the mound mentally, where he'll just make a mistake and then blow up. I also think with him, I mean, he's not a ground ball pitcher by any way, shape, and form. I do think the juice ball the last couple of years has had an effect on a flamethrower who gives up the fly balls. I do think that's part of the problem.
Does he get upset when an error is made behind him? Because there are pitchers that I know that especially Gary Gentry from the Mets in the 60s and 70s.
Right.
Anytime there's an error made behind him that wound up costing him runs, it'd totally blow up. Right,
and he's a lot like Burnett with that. The difference being Burnett would bear down and start pitching, whereas Cole, once you see that he's a little irritated, he's pretty much done. And that being said, I didn't think the return for him was that bad. You got Musgrove, who had a great year as an eighth inning guy for the Astros, but Pittsburgh's looking at him at a 4-5 guy, which, I mean, there's some potential there. He's a former top 100 prospect. Again, Feliz, I've heard some great things from people that have seen him, but he's got a live arm. I mean, are you going to be able to get him to do some control? And Moran, I've heard some good things about him, and John Sickles, who I've always respected as a minor league analyst, has him as the fifth best prospect in a good system. He said he's improved. He looks like he might have more power. Doesn't rave about him defensively, but I mean, he could be a nice player for the Pirates at third, where right now they have nothing. And anybody who looks at David Freese and thinks he was the answer,
no, he can't play regular. He's not good enough.
Exactly. So, I thought the return on that wasn't bad. But you know what, Al? The thing that irritates me more than anything is not the trades. What fans should be mad about is just this thought process of only really going after top-notch middle infielders and pitchers, especially in a juice ball era, has left the Pirate farm system not ready for what they're trying to do. That's where I'm irritated.
Yeah, this Meadows, he has a shot now to make the team as a regular.
I mean, he projects out good, but again, he's been injured for a couple of years, and we really haven't seen what he's done in the short glimpse we've seen him in AAA. It hasn't been real impressive. Now again, every time he's moved up, he's had little bouts of getting used to the new level, but he's always succeeded. So we haven't had that opportunity yet to see him, but he's not ready by opening day.
The thing is also is that in the Pirate chatters, because I'm not as close to it as you and the other, residents of Pittsburgh, that they're actually taking a proper petition to make Nutting sell the team, which of course is not going to happen.
No, that's pie in the sky thinking. And my thought, Al, has always been, if you're going to spend that time signing petitions and doing activism for something, do it with your government. Don't do it with a baseball team. You want to protest these guys, don't watch them on TV as they're trying to negotiate a new television contract, or don't go to the game. That's the only way you're.
That's the only way they'll understand. The football giants, from 64 through 79, they were terrible, and people stopped showing up. And it got finally got the owner's attention that they put a product out there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've even heard of guys who were going to dress in red or something. I don't know why red. Go to the opener and then leave en masse. But you've already given this man your money. So I'm not sure where the protest is there.
They don't care. They can save money on vendors.
And I have a guy who works for me who is a vendor there, and that's what he's afraid of. He's afraid he's going to work about half the games this year as last. But, I mean, my frustration with this wasn't at the trades right now. It was when they signed these two guys to long-term contracts, Huntington and Hurdle. Hurdle, as a guy, but I thought his insisting on Jaso in the outfield and insisting Watson was a closer after Watson showed you for the better part of a year he wasn't. I thought that lost him a lot of games and cost them better contention than they were already doing at that point.
Yeah, Jaso was a hot topic at the beginning of the year, and they were playing him essentially because Marte had been suspended.
Yeah, and that's a twofold thing. I mean, you knew he was just a tragedy in the outfield, and he was hitting under 200. That's when you at least get one of your young kids up there and give them a shot and see what they can do. But even towards September, he was insisting on throwing Jaso out there. Now, that being said, how do you go into a season with three outfielders only who legitimately can play Major League Baseball? Mind-boggling that wasn't a thought process, especially when Marte was out there. But, I mean, you traded Ramirez the year before, who was your top and next to Meadows, your top outfield prospect. You threw him in the Liriano trade, so you didn't have to eat any of Liriano's contract, which to me was one of the most irritating, stupidest. I don't care for Mirez and I forget the catcher's name, who was a great defensive catcher, but I don't care if they're ready to play Major League Baseball yet or not. That was just an irritating trade, and that cost you some depth. Because Ramirez, if nothing else, showed he was going to be a decent 270 to 280 hitter and was a lot better outfielder than what you had in Jaso.
Well, he's not going to be with them this year, Jaso, right?
No, he won't. He won't. But again, what are you looking at for your outfielders unless you make a move? Because again, Meadows won't be ready at least till midseason.
Yeah. Well, the thing is also that it's fairly common knowledge that Josh Harrison is up for a trade, the next one.
Right.
And he's supposedly asked out if if they're not going to contend, if they're rebuilding, quote unquote.
No, and that one I wouldn't mind as much. I mean, I love Harrison's effort, love him as a player. To me, he isn't good defensively. He has good range, but he doesn't have good instinct at second, and that's where you have your strength in the minors with Newman, Kramer, and I forget the other first-round pick. Name escapes me now, but you have three solid middle infielders who do project well from what the experts tell you, and from what I've seen at Altoona, do look like they have some talent and can go in there and stabilize that. But Harrison and Mercer in the middle infield, to me, was one of the main reasons defensively that you did not compete well. Because to me, Mercer had no range, and Harrison just didn't look like he had instinct.
Well, they settled with Mercer for excuse me, something like just short of $7 million.
Yeah,
for the arbitration.
Absolutely. And that to me is, again, if you're going to build on pitching, and I've said this even when they were going to the playoffs, you're building on pitching, but you're not putting good defensive players in the infield behind it. You talk about ground ball rates, but yet you have average to below average defensive players consistently behind these players. So, the planning thought process is what confuses me most about this front office.
And what do they have behind the plate except for Cervelli now?
No, he's been and that irritated me when
he gets hurt all the time. Yeah, he's another injury-prone player.
Absolutely. He's making fun of management for these moves on Twitter. And my thought is, well, you know what? You took a lot of money from this team, and you pretty much have been a huge disappointment not living up to your contract. So Cervelli, Marte, Polanco, Garrett Cole, while we're holding the front office applicable for the disaster of the last couple of years, we need to hold these guys in the same way, because they have given, pardon my language, head-up-the-ass performances these last couple of years.
Polanco is another one that seems, as the season goes on, seems to find his way to disable us quite often.
Yeah, he does. And it just, there's no fight through things. I don't know how badly they're injured, so it's tough to say. But you got some guys that'll play through a wall if you need them, and some guys who just spend a lot of time on the disabled list consistently. And both, and he's starting to remind me of a guy who signs like Tabata, signs a big contract, and feels he's set for life and doesn't put the effort in. Because he's putting effort, it ain't a good effort.
No, and Jim Haller asked the question on the Pirate chat group last week about the next Pirate to 200 home runs playing for them. I put down Josh Bell if he stays there that long. Yeah, you're right, and hopefully they'll sign him to one of the nice 6-7 years contract, get some
get some arbitration years, maybe a year or two after arbitration out of there. But here's a guy who, like McCutchen, can be the face of the franchise. A smart kid who seemingly works his butt off, and is enjoyed success so far. I mean, to me, that's your next face of the franchise. And you're right. He's got potential to hit 200 homers.
Yeah, I couldn't understand why they were basically platooning him quite a bit last year.
Yeah, again, just put him there. Again, that's another thing, Hurdle. To me, he did not have a good year himself. I mean, yeah, the players are probably the main culprit, but, Hurdle was not at his best last year either.
Yeah, and by teams like Washington got rid of Dusty Baker. Of course, I'm not a big fan of Dusty Baker because teams are terrible in the postseason. But they won 95 games last year, and Ardle they extend for 4 years. It just doesn't make any sense.
No. And then they do the same thing that they always do. They don't have it at the end.
Well, there are a lot of people here who think the Mets are the same way. That they won't spend any money because the ownership there was caught up in the Bernie Madoff scandals. Bernie Madoff Ponzi scheme, and a lot of people think that because they're dependent on the same pitchers that spent most of last year on the DL.
Right. I saw a poll yesterday, actually, for the worst owners in baseball, a famous poll, and the New York Mets took the number one slot. The Nutting Group was only fourth worst.
There were others that were better than them. They were worse than them. The Nutting.
It took the other two, but the New York Mets were voted with the worst ownership group in the game.
Oh, they're probably right. These young pitchers that Harvey and Syndergaard, they're hurt all the time, and they won't spend any money. I mean, they signed Jay Bruce, but that's about it. We discussed on a podcast the other night the reason that free agency was so quiet so far, and I think it's because the owners are gun shy of giving out long-term contracts because they've been burned an awful lot. And, the Scott Boras clients, I mean, he was looking for over $200 million in a 7-year deal for J.D. Martinez, who had a tremendous second half with Arizona last year, but can't field and can't run.
Right.
And they don't want to give these guys that kind of length anymore. So I think that's... it's a stalemate. And I'm wondering also if and when these guys get signed for lower than the union thinks is equivalent, is right, the union may scream collusion again like they did 30 years ago.
And that's probably what they will. But you know what? If I'm an owner, and again, let me ask you this. Okay, we talk about McCutchen, great guy, great ambassador. I mean, still probably the best player, but would you sign a guy who's 32 years old, going to be 33, who's declined the last couple years, and except for one phenomenal month last year, pretty much had a disappointing season in 2017? Would you invest $25 million over the course of 4 years in him?
Well, it depends on what's good PR and what's not good PR.
Yeah.
And the Cardinals went through this 6 years ago with Pujols,
right?
Who didn't become the face of the franchise. It was a big gate attraction, and they let him walk to the Angels. Now what I've read about him is that he can't play first base anymore, and he's going to be a DH, and they're obligated to pay him through 2021.
Well, it was the right move by the Cardinals. I don't mind they got rid of McCutchen. I thought the problem with that is you had more leverage if you got rid of him the year before. I mean, this outfielder might be something, might not be something. I've seen him. I read the Street and Smith preview where he's rated second in the organization. I've seen him some as low as 6 or 7. So you don't know what you got with this kid, but had you traded him last year or waited till mid-season this year, if you're out of contention, to get somebody who's desperate.
Yeah, exactly.
That would have been the better thing to do, in my thing. But I don't mind trading the guy because, from baseball terms, I don't. If your finances are limited, and whether they spend $120 million or $80 million, their finances are still limited. I'm not sure that would have been the best investment.
Well, that's because they have this luxury tax, which almost every team but the Yankees seem to avoid all the time. And there's no cap like they have in football and basketball. So the teams with the money, the Dodgers, the Yankees, probably the Cubs, they'll, if they want these guys bad enough, they'll corner them. There was one of the owners that was ranked below the Pirates, the Royals. Were they one of the teams?
Yeah, I'm not sure who the other two were. Yeah,
because the Royals have 3 potential, 3 of their top players, Mustakas, Hosmer, and Kane are all free agents out there, and it's very, very tough. A team in the Pirates division that seems to be trying to overcome the small market category is the Brewers, because I understand that they have offered Darvish a big contract, even though in the World Series last year he was awful.
Yeah, but he's supposed to announce Friday where he's going. I haven't heard anybody else in the conversation. So, yeah, they're trying to do business a different way and capitalize on their success from last year. But if I'm commissioner, I know they'll never. I would not call for a salary cap for the high team.
The union would never agree to that.
No, but what I would do, and what the union might agree to, because it would put more money in the players' pockets, is have a ceiling cap where teams can't spend $50 million anymore, $50 million and tank a year. Where maybe it's, the ceiling is, or the floor cap is $120 million. You have to spend at least $120 million.
Yeah, floor cap is better. Because, in the 50s they tried to, this bonus rule they had for a bunch of years in the 50s, where if they got certain amount of money as a bonus, they had to stay on the roster for 2 years.
Right.
And most of them, the only 3 out of that whole bunch that did it were, that turned out to be anything, were Sandy Koufax, Hubman Killebrew, and Al Kaline. But the thing is that was put in because the Pirates had one of those cases where they had a bonus baby in the early 50s named Paul Pettit.
Yeah.
That they'd given $100,000 to, and which was huge money back then, and they were rewarded with 1 win.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there are a couple other teams that made those kinds of mistakes also. So they put this in, and then they got rid of it after 5 years, and they're spending money. I mean, Bob Bailey, who recently passed away, they gave him $175,000.
No, huge bonus, baby.
Yeah, you're familiar with a guy named Bob Marcinetti? Yeah. You know Bob Marcinetti?
He's the guy that wrote the book on the 60 Pirates, right?
Yeah, and he basically said that when John Lightliner posted some Bailey pictures, that Bailey was rushed because hope was fading, and they immediately threw Bailey into third base, and it took him a few years to adjust. Unfortunately, it was other teams that he adjusted for.
Yeah, no, his career started gelling when he went to Montreal.
Yeah, so it's a lot of it is timing, and a lot of it is. Do you have any word on this pitcher, Mitch Keller? That's supposed to be very good.
Yeah, he's a top of the line guy. He's probably not as much a wild card as Glasnow. he seems like he has more control. I've seen him a couple times than Glasnow. He looks to me more like a Tyon than a Glasnow, but he definitely has top of the line potential.
Glasnow hasn't shown yet that he can pitch effectively on a major league level.
No, and that's a shame, because if he gets that pitch under control, man, he's going to be Koufax-like. But he hasn't.
Look, it took Koufax 6 years before he became Koufax.
Right, exactly. So this year will be important to him. I mean, I know the Pirates have toyed around with the idea of possibly putting him in the bullpen. So we'll see if that happens. But Keller had good success with Altoona last year. He's going to start there, so I'm going to make sure I get up there to see him in first few weeks of the season, because he seems like the kind of kid that's going to go to Indianapolis fairly quick, and we should probably see him by 2019. And then this kid Baz that I haven't had a chance to see him yet, but the talk with him is he has top of the rotation live arm potential. So I'm curious to really see his first full year. Hopefully get a chance next year. He'll probably be up in Altoona next year.
There's a guy in the group, I think his name is Donald Lancaster, that lives around there and goes to a lot of Altoona games.
Good guy. Real good guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's there's potential there. Said you have okay potential up the middle. Hayes at third base seemingly has power potential, which he hasn't really shown yet.
That's Troy Hayes' son, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And again, I haven't had the chance. I've seen him. I saw him, I believe, at West Virginia. But he's been injury prone throughout his career so far. So he is far from a sure shot. But the one thing where you at least have some good depth and potential is on the mound. So I mean that is a positive thing for the team going forward.
Okay, I think we've covered just about everything. I'm planning on going to the Sabre convention there in June.
I'll see you there.
Yeah, so we'll have to see. I have to work out a couple of things, but hopefully I'll be able to make it.
There you go.
So I can meet everybody that I've been, I know from Facebook. But again, as usual, it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for your insights, and we'll talk again soon.
You got it, Al. You have a good day.
Okay, you take care. And say hi to everybody there for me.
I certainly will.
Okay?
All right.
Okay. Thank you very much, David. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.